It's probably one of the most recognizable.
Mm-hmm.
And it came out August 1962, or that was, I should say, his first appearance. And so, yeah, it's good. I'm excited to kind of break that down.
Well, let's actually start there. I like where this is going just because I already had a question. So can we dive in real quick?
Let's do
All
it.
right. So
Yes.
say when you say first appearance, what comic did he appear in originally?
So the first appearance he ever had was in Amazing Fantasy number 15, August 1962. So the reason that he made an appearance in this comic book versus coming out directly in his very own comic book series didn't come out until March of 1963, The Amazing Spider-Man number 1. So the reason that happened is because when Stan Lee pitched the idea of this character, the studio executives, whatever, was like, no one's going to root for a superhero based on the spider because people hate spiders. Like, that was basically their premise.
Mm-hmm.
Stan Lee believed in this character so much that he was like, I'm going to sneak him into something else, just to kind of expose the world to it, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, thank God that he did. Imagine the world we would live in if we never got Spider-Man. Like, it
Right.
would be just such a sad world. But because he did that, and because that comic did so well and people were asking for more, the execs were basically like, hey, do you remember that character that we love so much, Spider-Man? Like, we'd love for him to have his very own comic series, and that's exactly what we got with the Amazing Spider-Man issue number 1. So it's kind of like the history of the superhero, of Spider-Man, and I think it's just such a cool story, of how he actually got to his own series, because it's kind of like that underdog story in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter Parker is very much an underdog. Like, he's a nerd and very much like he gets bullied before the spider bite. I mean, that still kind of continues after. And then he pretty much struggles his whole life trying to balance the two things. So he is definitely someone that we have rooted for since his inception. It's very
Definitely.
easy to feel for Peter Parker. Yeah.
I would say, like, say if you all could actually see this, there's like hundreds of characters in the Marvel universe, and I would put Spider-Man up as like maybe top three most iconic characters that they have. He was always one, like, for me, growing up, he was maybe the first Marvel cartoon that I started watching, maybe even before X-Men 97 or whatnot. And there was always different versions of him, and I always remember just seeing pictures of just Stan Lee just throwing out like his web in his pictures. So just knowing that, saying that the, let's say, the Amazing Fantasy, like, I have the comic picture up. I wouldn't have thought that they would have introduced him that way. I think that's pretty cool. The only reason why I asked, like, initially, what comic was he introduced in, because I was curious just to know if he was any part of any other character story. If this was just like an X-Men comic or something like that, and then intro Spider-Man. But no, this is just something, I'm guessing it was just totally different just to introduce the Amazing Spider-Man.
Basically, like, it's kind of almost like what's it's just like he snuck that character into the comics to just deliver it to the world because he believed that it would pick up momentum, and it did. And so I don't know, I love the history of him, and it's like he's probably one of the most recognizable characters. I believe he's the most adapted Marvel character. Like,
He
if you
has
look
to
at
be.
all the TV
He
shows,
has
the
to.
cartoons, the live actions, like, I think he's ranked like the number one most adopted Marvel character. So the impact that he has in the community is widespread. The pop culture, like, significance that he has is beyond just the fandom. And so it's very cool to celebrate the 60th anniversary of his character this year, alongside this episode, which is our 50th, which is kind of cool,
Yeah,
you know?
and I think if I can recall correctly, I think Spider-Man is the first maybe crossover in terms of cartoons that I remember, because there was a moment, which I know it happened in the comics, but it also happened in the cartoons, to where he grew four more arms, and then from there, that kind of crossed over into the X-Men realm, and it was also in the X-Men cartoons. So, like Spider-Man has such, let's say, a rich history, just with, like you said, the most adaptations that we've seen on and off screen, from uh, the films to shows to comics to video games and everything like that. So uh, I think them re-releasing No Way Home, just for the 60th, I think it's a proper celebration. But here is where like I question the re-release, just because if this is the more fun version, like we mentioned before, like we had the DVD with 80 minutes of additional content. Tell me, Grace, like if it came down to it, what was let's talk about the movie. Like tell us why we should actually go to the theaters again to actually see it.
I mean, for people like you and I to re-experience this film on the big screen, I think for me was no question. Like I wanted to go see it
Mm-hmm.
again. I think I shared like the first round of this film. I watched it like 4 or 5 times just because I wanted to recreate like the beautiful experience I had the first time. But unfortunately, the crowds were like dry at that point, so whatever.
Yeah.
But I was really excited to go see it myself. Period. But then, being that there was going to be extended footage, I was just excited to get more. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just to get more. And there was definitely things I would have loved to see that we didn't get. There's definitely things that we saw that I really enjoyed. And so I think if you're just a fan, period, to get content in any more content in any extent, I think is always fun as a fan because you don't always get that. And if you do, when have you ever been able to actually see it on screen? Usually it's
Right.
just maybe in like the deleted scenes or extra footage on the DVD, which in this case was not. And I'm a little salty about that. That's a different thing. um, so I mean, I would honestly say like go enjoy this film before it's no longer in theaters again, just because it's like, come on, it's a different experience when you get to see these things on like the big screen, because that's how it's meant to be received,
can I
you know.
can I
So
ask
yeah.
you, is this, let's say, Marvel's version of like a Snyder cut, them just releasing like a longer version of a movie?
Oh, this would not, I would not compare this to the Snyder Cut example because those are two different films entirely. Here, like, I think because some of the extended footage overlaps with maybe things that we've seen already in the film, but maybe were a little different. There were some things that were removed to fit these scenes
Mm.
in, but nothing that would change the story. So I would definitely not call this like a Snyder Cut type of a change. It's just added. It's just added stuff, you know?
It's just more, basically
It's
same
just
story.
more.
Whereas,
Cause
like, I get
it's
what you're saying, because Snyder cut, even
yeah,
though it's like hours worth of additional footage, it went from 2 to 4 hours. It was almost like a completely different movie just altogether, you know, from yeah,
period.
storyline and even characters, you know. So I was just curious just to know if this was like Marvel's, even though it's just not like they're not putting it out there as this director's cut. They're just, you're just saying no, it's same movie. They just added a few more scenes here and there.
Yeah, that's honestly the best way I could describe it. It's the way that they kind of set the expectation. It's only 11 minutes more. It's just the extra fun version. Keep in mind, if there was anything in these extended cuts that were monumental and significant to the story, it would have released in the original one. So everything we're getting is just fun stuff that we didn't get to see in the previous one. And a lot, so there are some scenes that I think it's so cool that we got to see, but if let's just say it was added to the original release, I'd be like, okay, we really didn't need this
Mm-hmm.
because it does kind of take away in some sense. But being that this is the second round, it's cool because you can just appreciate the extra minutes that we did get. However, like I said, there are some scenes that I really thought or hoped we would get of and we didn't, and I'll kind of get to that in the very, very, very
Mm-hmm.
end. But overall, like I mean, it's just more. Like, what more do you want? You're getting more as a fan. I'm excited. Like, that's all that I'm happy that they did this.
Okay. My last question before we dive into the movie would be, um, do you think this is them releasing this? Is this Marvel Studios move to come ahead of Avatar in terms of sales worldwide.
Did No Way Home take out Avatar, or was it close?
It took it out, but then Avatar came back recently. I think it was I think it was earlier this year where like Avatar retook first. So that's why I'm just like, it's like, are they doing this to kind of maybe like get it over that hump, you know? To
Regain,
right,
yeah.
right. Because I
I don't
believe Avatar
know.
went back to
Yeah.
theaters as well, like in some countries, like either this year or late last year.
Yes, and it's almost funny because I feel like it's almost like maybe they were like, okay, in response to that film, we need to reclaim our spy, especially with like the sequel around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? I mean, this is also, of course, like they're if they can sense any opportunity to re-release a film and bank on like the profits there, they're gonna do it. And honestly, I think this was a situation where it's like, okay, like we're getting extra footage. I'll buy in. It is what it is. I'll do it. The only thing that pissed me off, like I said, was the fact that of the 80 minutes of extra footage on the DVD, this was not included because it's literally the reason that I bought it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, ugh.
But
Now I
either
just have a
way,
collectible.
Disney's winning no matter what.
Okay. I obviously the D23 stuff is going to come around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Avatar's not really included because it's not comic book related, but Avatar has, I think, a lot going for them where they don't need to necessarily try to one up Marvel because it's almost like two different playing fields in a sense. You know what I mean? They're not in competition directly, but obviously being that No Way Home got so close to beating Avatar, I think if anything, there's like a pride in the executives of like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like this has been our title for a decade of being like the number one most receiving, project.
Well, let's say because I don't want to just strictly base it off of like the formula of Marvel and how they've built such a huge universe from just expanding from if let's say Incredible Hulk and beyond, you know. But like if like I'm sorry, I'm talking about Avatar, but here in Avatar, if they're already trying to film, if they've already finished filming up to film number 4, then what's the director's name? I forgot. It's like James. Shoot.
I don't know.
Either way,
Of Avatar, you're saying, right?
right. Either way, when it comes down to it, I like the idea that they're almost kind of following suit, not following Marvel in a way, but like they're expanding upon the story. Even though the movie itself it ended real good, like Avatar, I think is just a classic, and hence why it held or maybe holds the top spot. But now it's just like everybody's kind of going above and beyond to try to continue franchises. Like, because say if Marvel wasn't doing what it's doing, I don't think the director of Avatar would have even thought to do multiple sequels after the first. I thought he would have left it alone and left it to be a classic.
Well, I know that the filming for the sequel had been done a very, very, very long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just like the VFX like takes so long to do with this kind of to this degree in this way in this quality, the same way that it would match like the original and even more
Sure.
so. So I think we'd have to look at the timeline to really see get a full answer. But I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, I think ever since I don't know what brand. Honestly, I feel like Twilight is the first one that comes to mind of like creating this like franchise thing, and it was Hunger Games, and then everything was like, okay, let's create a franchise because there's a lot of money that can be made there, right?
Definitely.
So it's hard to say when Avatar or like the makers of Avatar decided to make these many films.
Mm-hmm.
I just know that the sequel had been in the works for many, many, many years. Like if anything, early days of Avengers, Iron Man, all of that.
Right.
It's just so the whole concept to me is just so mind-boggling to think that these things have already been filmed. We're not going to see them for years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we haven't even got. It's just ridiculous. In my head, it's like I can't grasp that. It's insane.
Well, I'm assuming that they've already. It's almost close to being done in terms of post production for the one that's. I think there's one coming out this year. Yeah. Let's see.
Is it this year or is it 2023?
December. It comes out in December. So this movie is pretty much already done, and then I see the third is coming out in 2024, the fourth is coming out in 26, and then the fifth is coming out in 2028. So it's like they're just steamrolling this out, and then isn't isn't
The
Avatar?
fifth?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you just say the Lord
Yep,
help
yep.
me? Oh my god. Yeah.
Wait, Avatar. Wait, oh my bad. I thought Avatar was Disney. No, it's not. It's Fox. So apologies. Disney isn't winning. I thought they were all under the same umbrella, but.
Why did the because I know these announcements were made very, very recent.
Hmm.
Why do I think they were made under D23? I must be wrong on that. I think if anything, it was just released coincidentally, and in my head, I associated the two. Because I for some reason was still thinking it was under Disney.
I'm looking up Avatar D23 right now, and D23 there was a panel, so
Oh, then
it
done.
is
It's
Disney.
set.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool. All right.
Well, Disney did buy out a lot of the Fox
Oh,
projects, so
sure,
I'm like,
sure.
maybe
Fantastic
that's
Four
what
and
it
all
is.
that. Yeah, exactly. So,
We cracked the case.
we're cracking
We cracked
cases.
the
You know what I'm
case.
saying? We're out here.
Left and right. So also I was gonna comment, like December is going to be such a fat like money making year for Zoe Saldana because you got Guardians of the Galaxy, the Christmas special,
Hmm.
and then you have like Avatar, the sequel coming out,
Hmm.
which has been long awaited. Wow.
Yeah, like
Like I know we all talk about like the freaking dynasty that the Kardashians have made and how much money they have, but I want to know the worth of Zoe Saldana.
it's
That's who I'm curious about.
it's her and uh Zazie Beats. Those two women, they I think they've held the title in terms of I think Zoe was in the highest grossing film, and Zazie was in the highest grossing R-rated film, which was The Joker. And I think they both hold like one more title, and I'm just like, these ladies are killing it. And then of course, if there are sequels, then that money's just gonna keep coming in.
Man,
Yep.
crazy.
Yep. Hmm.
Okay, are you ready to kind of get into these extra footage
Let's
clips?
talk. Let's talk about it.
Let's do it. Let's do it in order. I think that would just be the cleanest thing. But before we actually get into the clips themselves, this re-release opened up with an introduction from Toby, Tom, and Andrew. And I love how, I mean, obviously they're just, thanking the fans for dedication, the support, et cetera, et cetera. But also I love how they finished with like finally telling Andrew Garfield, like, we love you, man, like in response to the way he did it. Because that was, I think, from what I heard, that was actually like an improvisation. And the way that they both responded, like, thank you, like very Star Warsy, was like an improv on the other actor's part too. So it was just such a beautiful moment that was
Hmm.
documented. And I love that it was like full circle in this introduction that they made for this film.
Okay. Well, first, before we go further, I'm just gonna tell you right now that I'm going to be more so on the listening end, just because I haven't had a chance to go around and check it out. So,
Wait a minute. Okay, hold on.
I'm interested just to know what other scenes were added. Like, that's why I'm like, I haven't been sold yet, and I want you to sell me in terms of why I should go see this in theaters.
I am like frozen. What? We are on like minute 20
Mm-hmm.
on the stream, and you're just telling
Yep.
me that you
I'm
haven't seen the
just
clip.
giving you the heads up.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the disappointment you
I'm
are.
sorry. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
so, all right, let's get into it then. So, if anything, let me just kind of describe the scenes that we kind of get point for point.
Mm-hmm.
We can have our little discourse as we go, and then we'll kind of wrap it up at the end with like final thoughts on it. How's that sound?
I'm with it.
Okay, cool, cool. So, first scene that we have a DODC interrogation scene with Peter Parker. So this is an extension to the interrogation scene that we did see play out in the original cut. So in this particular scene, we have the DODC agent, the same one we see in Miss Marvel, asking Peter about the boat and the Washington Monument incidents from Homecoming, as well as about the night monkey from Far From Home.
Okay.
And obviously this is all done in like a very comedic fashion, and Peter is even using like one of those old school flippity big pages that like the teachers would use when they would like write words and stuff
Oh
on,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
whiteboard.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about. he's like trying to draw like I think he was drawing either it was like the national monument or drawing a picture of how he was able to keep like the boat put together before Iron Man came in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really funny because it's like for a moment the DODC agent's like genuinely trying to figure out how he made it work. He's like, okay, hold on, go back to this part and tell me about this part. So it was a very like funny addition to the interrogation scene that we did receive in the original cut.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Because yeah, from what I remember, it didn't really last long with Peter Parker because it just cut from his from Ned to MJ, and then it just cut back to the apartment with Matt Murdock. So it was like
Yes,
I would say
exactly.
the scene maybe lasted honestly maybe like 2 minutes. So I feel like added this addition it because I remember you said just now that like some they could have I just added into the original or I forgot how you worded it, but I feel like this would have been like just something funny just so again this whole movie which we said in our last breakdown of the original release it's all about the nostalgia in terms of bringing up like the different Spider-Man here, but even bringing up old Spidey moments from Homecoming and No Way Home and all that, or Far From Home or whatnot. It's that nostalgia that would make us enjoy that just a little bit more.
I mean, it is the nostalgia that overall makes this film easily the top ranked amongst the MCU projects, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I completely agree. And building off of the DODC interrogation, now we have the extended version of Aunt May's. So the DODC agent comments on how she's so familiar with police protocol, right? Because she's very much like, okay, do you know the Fourth Amendment? Do you know this? Like, she's very much like combative with this
Mm-hmm.
DODC agent and not really giving in. And as she's having that conversation, she says, yes, like I'm very familiar with police tactics. Like she kind of talks about how she had been like detained or arrested by police in different protests. And I love that they added this in because it's been since her appearance in, I forget if it was Homecoming was the first time we saw Aunt May. No. It wasn't Civil War. So ever since we saw her appear, she's had a very like hippie esque vibe to her,
Mm-hmm.
right? She has like very much like a very retro look to her, and she's so like zen and has that energy that I feel like this adds so well to her character for them to just make this slight little comment of the fact that she has actually had a lot of um altercations with police because she's been part of a lot of like peaceful protests that ended up in different situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that this was actually a really cool addition that if they did leave it into the original, I think it would have been a great addition to her story, especially knowing that this is going to be the last film we see her in alive, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I still like the idea of just having the younger Aunt May, them bringing Marissa Tomei into this universe and playing Peter Parker's aunt is just totally different from the old women and old men that we've gotten as guardians for Peter Parker. But like, I can see honestly just from just how she's carried herself up until this movie to where it's like, oh yeah, I believe her if she is on some like hippie esque used to protest because though she is younger, she still kind of has that mature-ish look to where she.
This bad guy. We get this elderly woman, like, middle-aged woman who's like criticizing Tom, like, you shouldn't be doing that anymore. You're just a child. And then someone else coming out of the car being like, when I was 14, I had a job and I don't know, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, as he's just trying to do his job and like be the
Spider-Man.
friendly neighborhood Spider-Man,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're all like in debate as to whether he should even be allowed to continue his vigilantism since it is now known that he is like 17 or maybe close to 18 at this point. But they're having this discourse, and then this blends into a scene that we did see, which is him getting slimed with this like green
Ah,
whatever it
gotcha.
is.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we didn't
Yeah.
see too much discourse in the original. Yeah, we got everything from J. Jonah Jameson to like the students at the school standing outside in the front, and yeah, we saw the green paint on screen. But do you think us getting more of this on screen it would have just made this better, or is it something that they could have just left cut out?
I feel like I could. I like it's not something I feel like needed to be
Mm-hmm.
on the main cut. Like most of these, I can completely understand why I didn't add it in. Like none
Yeah.
of it is like screaming at me like, "Oh my god, why wasn't this in the original cut?" It makes sense why they left it out, like because it doesn't necessarily add more to the story. It's just
Right.
kind of in addition, which is what a lot of this content is.
Yeah.
But it was cool because, and I like that you mentioned how we did get a lot of this information mainly through like the news reports of J. Jonah Jameson, because the scene that we get on the original cut of him getting like slimed
Mm-hmm.
is from like someone's phone recording. However, here we see it from just this perspective of it happening in the moment
Oh,
as a
got you.
continuation. So
Okay.
it's a different perspective. Yeah.
Was it at another angle too?
It was at a different angle. So this was more directly from the front of Peter, which is where in the film we see it slightly from his left angle,
Mm-hmm.
like someone watching the situation and Peter facing the guy. So it was a very different angle. And so it was cool because it was connected completely to the scene with Harry Holland.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. 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 I like it.
Okay, these scenes, like these bundle of scenes that are coming up, I actually really liked. Not all of them, I think, needed to be on screen for the main cut, but I love that we got to see it here because they give us a very like a big insight on Peter's life
Mm-hmm.
in school, now having his identity been revealed. And so a couple of those things is like there's an extension of when he's walking down the hallway and all the kids are looking at him, as he's kind of off screen, people are just there kind of left speechless, and this one guy is like, he was my lab partner. And
Mm.
like, they're all just amazed because Peter was very much someone who is like not at the forefront of like social society when it comes to school, right? He was very much a nerd, and so they're
Right.
like, oh my god, this guy, he was my lab partner, like I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
um there's another scene where he's in PE and he's kind of like forced to crawl on the wall, like everyone's like, do it, do it,
Right.
do it.
That's something I have seen. Like people have posted to where I think they did he crawl on the wall to like grab something or post something up or something.
I think they were just making him do it, but
Oh
honestly,
wow.
I can't remember fully. Like, it was very almost like demeaning, very similar to how like Zendaya's character or like MJ was telling Andrew like crawl on the wall, just to like make a point and to prove something. Like here,
Right.
I think it was similar, but in a much more like demeaning way.
Oh
I
yeah.
will say it was like so weird to see Peter Parker crawling on the wall versus Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I don't think we've seen Peter like visually do a lot of the action stuff. I think the closest thing I can think of was in Far From Home when he just puts on like the mask, only he's still in like his normal gear, like from the neck down, and he's trying to keep this one like huge um building from collapsing down, and the initial like conflict he was having with who we now know to be Mysterio.
Mysterio. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's kind of
Well,
cool.
I can say if anything, if they may have been keeping that light with Tom Holland, but I remember Tobey Maguire used to be uh like scaling walls as Peter Parker a lot, and like in that trilogy, So that's an interesting fun fact that we haven't really gotten much from this Peter Parker doing that. We've mostly seen Spider-Man doing it, and then maybe Peter Parker every, I don't know, once in a blue moon. But now here it's like he's in school in gym and in regular street clothes or maybe even gym clothes, and they're just kind of I don't want to say tormenting him, but like just kind of giving him a hard time to climb the wall. So I can imagine
Yeah.
it just maybe even looks different just to see Tom Holland climb a wall like that.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the whole Tobey Maguire because I was thinking of that so as well. Um, and I think it's what highlighted. I'm like, you know what? We actually haven't seen Peter do some of the stuff, and that's something I'm realizing 3 films in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. So once they get him to like climb the wall, everyone's like, do it, do it, do it. And then once does it, like everyone is silent, and then the gym teacher, the same one who's like the conspiracist, he's like, look at that sticky bastard go. It was just,
Mm-hmm.
it's a really funny scene. It's a very funny scene.
Okay.
Um, and then continuing on with some of the scenes that kind of focus around the school. So we get this whole like interview montage with Betty Brant. So Betty Brant, we saw a lot in Far From Home because she
The
plays like
news
Ned's
reporter. Or no,
girlfriend.
no, 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 never. Or is she? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah. She is the news reporter, right?
She's the yeah. We see her in No Way Home as like the news reporter, as Peter is like kind of integrating back into school.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like this whole other segment within kind of those bundle of scenes where you're just watching her interview like Ned, Flash, the teachers, etc., Peter. And just like a fun fact, so Betty Brant in the comics works for the Bugle,
Mm-hmm.
and we do see her in the original Spider-Man trilogy, played by the actress Elizabeth Banks. And so it's kind of a cool, like, just Easter egg. It's like, because I don't think a lot of
Elizabeth
people make that
Banks. I
connection.
wouldn't have. Let me just see who this face is. Elizabeth Banks, you say?
Yes, so she plays Betty in the original trilogy. She has like this bobbish brown black hair, and she's the one who gives the
Uh
checks to Peter.
yeah, I know exactly who this
Yeah,
is.
she's
From
yeah,
Hunger
yeah, yeah,
Games.
yeah. And so oh yeah, yes,
Mm-hmm.
that actress,
Mm-hmm.
that actress. So she's the one who like gives the checks to Peter. She's so nice to him. You know, I think it's in the second movie where he goes to get paid out for one of the checks, and she's like, "I'm sorry, Peter, but this doesn't cover the advance I gave you the week before." And then he's very sad, and she's like, "Shut
Right.
up!"
Oh
Like I don't
yeah, I
know. It's
remember
like a
that
scene I
scene.
can't
Yep.
remember very vividly. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. So that is this exact same character, Betty
Cause
Brant.
she had dark hair in that movie. She didn't have blonde,
She did
right? She was a brunette in that movie.
exactly. Exactly. So I feel like it's a hard character to tie in for a lot of people, but it's the same character.
Gotcha.
So it's very cool to see her already playing like this interview-esque kind of thing, like working in journalism, because I think it connects to where she ends up.
Mm-hmm.
In the original trilogy, she's basically like J. Jonah Jameson's assistant. But it's cool. It all ties together. So I'm wondering if now that next time we see Peter, he's now in college. We're assuming they're all kind of in their young adult lives, and so I wonder if we're going to see Betty Brant actually working for like J. Jonah Jameson in the next film that we see them in.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a pretty good connection, and b just cool, just because just aside from expanding Peter Parker, Mary Jane, and Ned, it's like we're expanding beyond, because I'm sure we're gonna get more of like a story from Flash or like more story from her, So it's like they're everybody minus Peter's original love interest in Homecoming. I can imagine them just continuing to build on with the even with the new trilogy that's coming with Tom Holland.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that would be so cool because it wouldn't even necessarily need to be at the forefront of the story. But obviously, we're going to see J. Jonah Jameson talk
Mm-hmm.
in any of these films. So maybe she's the person to deliver like the notes for the day, like on screen as he goes into one of his segments. It could be so done so simply, and I think it'd be cool, like you said, to build off like the universe. So one of the couple of the interviews she did. So when she did the interview with Mr. Harrington, which is the teacher who made like the shrine to
Sure,
Spider-Man in
I got you.
at school,
Mm-hmm.
he mentions that Peter, he's like my son, and he's like my brother at the same time. And then we get Flash, who claims that he coined the name
Of
Spider-Man.
course.
And something I saw is that when you see his name appear on the screen, it says Flash Thompson, and then underneath it says author, student,
Oh
patriot. And
wow.
I don't know why, but that made me laugh because you just know that he probably like gave that to
Oh,
them
for
for them
sure.
just
A
to put
hundred
underneath the
percent.
prompt, you
Yep.
know?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And then there's a section where like Betty asks him something very specific about his book, and then he grabs the book like abruptly, and he's like, "Oh my god, is that really in there?" Like kind of suggesting that he actually didn't write the book, like he had some kind of a ghost writer like help him, which I think is so funny because it makes so much sense for this character.
Well, I think honestly, if anything, there is no way, like, from the announcement of Peter Parker becoming Spider Man and uh, the time they arrive at school to where Flash is promoting the book, I'm only saying that's a couple of days. Like, it couldn't even been like a week or so. So he definitely just he paid off some ghostwriter just to write something. So yeah, I believe
I'm
that.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just really funny. I feel like it just makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets called out right on camera. So the next scene that we have is an extended version of the Undercroft scene. So We have the Monster Mash song playing in the background. Once, the team, Ned, MJ, and Peter are trying to get set up to figure out where they might find the Green
Mm-hmm.
Goblin. They're checking all of like social media just to see if there's anything on there. So they're kind of clearing out the undercroft to make it like their working space. And they come across this replica of the Sanctum Sanctorum. And when they're looking at the replica, there's this mysterious figure on like the window at the very front that looks like it looks like the silhouette of Doctor Strange, and you look at it and the figure starts to turn around and walk away. So it's like it's so weird to know what that means. Like I was wondering if like, oh, does this mean somehow Doctor Strange was actually watching over them,
Mm-hmm.
like while they were doing all of the work in the Undercroft, and somehow, like, he was able to spy on them in this way. It's really interesting because you don't really have an answer,
Right.
So that's a weird extended scene that I really liked.
Okay. That sounds pretty weird, just simply for the fact that like, because when they were in there, he was off trying to get like I think he ended up getting the lizard, right? And he was like, because he hadn't been put into the mirror dimension by this time, right? By this point.
No,
Right. So yeah, he
not
probably
yet.
just left that there, honestly, just to keep an eye on them, and he probably has like a tiny little mini me just to report back somehow magically.
Oh yeah, I feel like it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Another one, we the Daily Bugle extended edition. So it's after the power lines were torn down when Spider-Man was stopping Electro, and J.
Ever, no matter what.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think I can't remember if it was here or if maybe somewhere I saw it somewhere else. But then he's just like who's vetting our sources? Who's fighting? Like I think someone was upset that they threw this lunatic, in his words, like on the call for him.
Well, let me ask you, like in the scene with J. Jonah Jameson, was he still kind of like out of his undies in his apartment shooting when he got this call?
No, no, no. This is at the point where he's got a studio. He has like a whole
Okay.
team of people.
Then
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah. So
blew.
this is
Then
when
he
he's gotten
blew
his
up. He
upgrade.
blew up directly right after announcing who Spider Man was. Then, like it was like immediate. It was a change from
Yeah,
apartment, and then the next week he's in the studio having his own show.
basically. I mean, basically. Let's see. Okay, so, oh, but keep in mind also, like, and this is something I think I realized really when I was watching this time around. A good amount of time has passed from when the school year starts to when they send out their letters for college to when they get to find out if they're actually going to go to college,
Hmm.
because this movie wraps up like sometime in like Christmas time, like December, because it's like snowy. There's already, I think, Christmassy things going on.
Yeah.
And so it actually does cover like a good amount of time. So maybe like let's just say a month by the time that he gets his full on studio or something like that. Because keep in mind the scene that we get where they receive their letters, it's November because they're taking down the Halloween decorations. You know what I mean? So it's just a month away from like December, which is where we end up wrapping
Well,
like
though
the movie.
I think you and I we've had this conversation before in terms of timeline because when it comes down to uh, Far From Home and this Euro trip, it's not a summer trip, right? It's during the school year.
No, it's a summer trip.
Oh, it is a summer trip. So it's the end of the summer to
Yes.
where Mysterio announces who Peter Parker is, basically.
Yes, and then he into starting his like the fall semester in his last year of high school.
Oh, okay. I thought this school trip was still part of the previous school year.
No, 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 no. Because like Far From Home, it starts off by saying they were forced to redo the whole school year and all these things. They had already done finals and now they're moving on to like their summer like trip
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And so yes, so this film takes place basically from like the like end of summer into the main events happen in
Mm-hmm.
November because we just finished up Halloween because we're taking down the decorations,
Right.
and then when we see Peter Parker enter like the coffee donut shop, it's now like December, we can safely
Right.
assume.
Right. Because the donut owner
Um,
asked Mary Jane to remove the decorations when they were getting the letters.
and yeah, and it's actually kind of cool how they did that because it's like those subtle indications to suggest like the passage of time that like I don't it's like you don't realize until you look into them, like, oh, like I see what they're doing with how like they're creating this like story, because really this ends up being like a 4 month period that we kind of
Sure.
cover overall.
Mm-hmm.
And so enough time for J. Jonah Jameson to like, fix up his whole um, you know, career into this like big studio
Right.
development.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that yeah,
So go ahead.
just how you broke it down, I think that makes the most sense. 4 months, I like it, like, because a lot happens in this movie, and it's like you said, the little subtle things to where you don't really think of the time, like me thinking about like Peter in the donut shop looking at the little figure that looks like Doctor Strange to get his idea to go see Doctor Strange. I'm not even thinking that it's Halloween time. I'm just so immersed in everything else and the story of him not getting accepted into college or whatnot. I don't even think about
Hmm.
it being Halloween time, being October, you know?
Yeah, so it's because it's like, okay, they get back to school. It's August, September, October. It's already November when we see them open their letters because, someone obviously dropped the ball and didn't take down the decorations when they were asked.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to December, which is where the film wraps up. So it was done really well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, keep going.
All right, moving on. This is probably my favorite, only because I think it gave me like a very nostalgic element. So the scene itself is very simple. It's an elevator ride scene of basically all of the characters, like Aunt May, Peter Parker, all the
Mm-hmm.
villains, and the elevator going up into Happy's like
Mm-hmm.
condo. And it was just a scene of them like sitting in pure awkward silence with like the elevator music playing. But it reminded me so much, and I really feel like this is a callback to Spider-Man 2, where we see Spider-Man take an elevator because he's having his like web blockage, and so he can't like just swing, so he had to go take like an elevator to come down a building. And he has this very awkward like silence with this one man and his dog, and then like an awkward conversation when he's asking like, where did he get his Spidey suit? He's like, I made it, and he's like, oh, it looks very
Oh
uncomfortable, and we
right,
have
yeah,
Peter
no, I
share
remember
that.
that one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, it's itchy and it rides up the crotch a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of that scene so much that for me it was very nostalgic, and I'm sure it was I'm sure it was meant to be.
Uh, Random. Was the actor in the elevator with him? Is that the guy from Multiverse of Madness, the hot dog, or no, the pizza ball guy?
No, it is not.
Okay,
No, it is
all
not.
right. You know who I'm talking about, right?
It's a completely different actor. I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's not him.
Okay. All
It's not
right. I
him.
was just curious because I believe he
Yes.
was in all
And
three of
then
the original trilogies.
I think that is what did happen, because the intention was for him to be Mysterio,
Oh right, that's
So
right. Gotcha.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so okay, so moving on from that scene, we get a scene that I think this one would actually be kind of cool to have kept in. So let's revisit a previous scene actually first. So remember the scene where Matt Murdock is telling Happy that he should probably get a lawyer, and Happy's kind of like mumbling like, "Oh, I could just say, because it could incriminate me." Blah, blah, blah. He's going off, but he doesn't really know what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, "You're gonna need a really good lawyer."
Right.
Well, he did get a very good lawyer because he hired Matt Murdock, and we get this scene here now where Happy is kind of in the front of I'm assuming a bunch of other attorneys,
Mm-hmm.
and let's see. Oh, Matt is telling Happy to stop sweating because he's just super nervous, and he also receives this notification that like these five like criminals are like entering his condo, which is why like he knew that it was happening, and he ended up driving off to the condo, like the complex, after his meeting. But Matt's like, "You're sweating. Stop it. It looks bad." And he's like, "How do you even know that?" Because he's blind.
Right. Right. Um, I think with that, do you think them adding a little bit more Daredevil, it's just, I don't know, it's just like fan service, just being that with all the D23 news with Daredevil and everything coming soon, that was just something that we just, well, let me ask again, is this another scene to where plus or minus, like could we have, would you prefer to have this in the original, or are you kind of glad they kind of removed it?
See, originally I was like, fine, like we're getting more Matt Murdock because one of the things I initially was looking forward to is hopefully seeing more of him in this extended version. And when I first saw it, I was like, dude, that's all we got, extra of Matt Murdock. But honestly, I think that it was very well done and that we actually didn't get a lot of him. Cause like I like the sensation of wanting more
Sure.
of this
Mm-hmm.
character, and we're gonna get more. And I think it does make that one scene we get of him just perfect,
Yeah.
of him just being like, catching the thing. How'd you do that? Like, I'm a really good lawyer, and
Mm-hmm.
then done. Like, I think that was so perfect that I wouldn't, like, for the original cut, I feel like that was it. I don't want to, like, I think that was a great introduction of the MCU
Mm-hmm.
and great last scene before we're going to see him again in She Hulk.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully that's this week. We hope so.
I know. I honestly, it has to be. They can't give us the little snippet of them being all like sexy to each other and then not give us the episode right away. They
Right.
can't. That's
Right.
rude.
Mm-hmm.
Man. Okay, so, and this is a bundle of scenes that I really wish that they put in the original cut. So, this is an extension of those scenes where they're waiting for all the bad guys to come to the Statue of Liberty, and it's when they're having all this banter of their super villains,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Their back issues that they share, and a couple of the scenes that were added on. Andrew says, well, they have this exchange where they're like, oh yeah, I'll be sure to grab your number when we're all done with this, like that they have plans to like kind of like exchange these numbers as if their plan service extends to multiverses.
Right.
Okay, we're gonna have to see a phone emerge very, very, very soon that allows them to communicate to different multiverses. Like, it's gonna have to happen.
No, it's
Like,
not.
it's gonna have to
It's
happen.
not.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. I think the only way to do that is somehow you probably got to kill America and somehow harness her powers to even try to communicate to any other universes.
Reduce her to a cell phone.
Right, exactly.
There, something I'm thinking, because okay, there's this comic book that I love because it has Silk, Spider Woman, and Gwen Stacy's Spider
Mm-hmm.
Woman, and because Gwen Stacy lives in a different universe
Peter Parker.
than Cindy
Oh, never
Moon's
mind.
Silk Spider, Peter Parker, the one that we know, as well as I think her name's Jessica Drew. Jessica Drew's Spider Woman, completely different universe, but
Okay.
they somehow communicate with like these bands. I think is what it is, and they planned like a brunch evening together. So it exists. It's a thing in the comics, like
The older.
a thing,
Okay.
and that's how they
Okay. Sure.
communicated. And
Sure.
I feel like it'd be so cool if the way we see it is for these three Spider-Men to like have a similar thing.
Okay.
I just want them
Okay.
to like bond. That's all I want.
Because they did, and
From
it just
the
sucks that like if there's not a way to communicate, like they all kind of became a band of brothers, even though
brothers,
they're all
yeah.
different versions of themselves. Just like, oh man, I love you. You're great. Stop beating yourself up. You're amazing. That type of stuff. To where now Andrew Garfield goes back to his universe. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have that older brother Peter Parker to kind of lift him up.
And that younger Peter Parker to have that reflection of like, wow, he's on the journey I was on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still kind of on that journey of like, I'm bitter. I'm still not holding my punches, and now I need to kind of turn things around. Like, it's a home stay. Like, you have siblings,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I have a brother.
It's like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that. I'm just saying. But in addition to all of the scenes, we also get like so this is part of the banter where they're asking Tobey Maguire like about his ability to just produce his own web and how it works and like how all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then instead of it wrapping up the way we see it, the conversation wraps up to like Andrew just saying, I want to see the holes. But the way he says it is just so perfect. He's like, I want to see the holes, man. Like, it's just so good. And it's after Peter 1 is like, does it just come out of your wrist or does it come out of other places? And then it cuts to Andrew making that line. And so for that reason alone, it's worth going to watch.
Okay.
This banter right here.
I'm with it. I
this
like
banter right
yeah,
here.
just because it was that banter that kind of brought it home for me, even though it's kind of like the intro into the final act. I feel like it was that scene right there. Of course, it's the famous like point scene as well. So right then and there, if they added that, then that would have. He was already funny, Like, I think we kind of described him to be the more like charismatic Spider-Man, you know, and I feel like with that, it would have put him over the top, you know.
It's just so good. Yeah, and he has that charismatic energy when he delivers the line, which makes it that much funnier, you know?
Yeah.
And then the last little bit that they kind of add on was Toby says something along the lines of like, "I'm constantly stunned by the simultaneous spectacular like of these things, but yet," and like then Andrew finishes to be like, "It's just another Monday," because they're like sharing about their super villains and all this stuff, and I think it's when Peter one just talked about how like, "Oh yeah, I found an alien on Earth and in space,"
Right.
and then he's like, "Dude, it's." He's like, amazes me how simultaneously this is so spectacular, and yet it's just another Monday for us. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's I don't know. It's just it's all the banter that for this alone, this is what I wanted. This is what I was going in to really, really, really get, and I'm so happy that they did give us it, and I think it was in the perfect moment because it adds to this beautiful like bonding
Mm-hmm.
scene, and then obviously then it transitions to like, guys are here, you know, they get the spidey sense, and then it moves on into action, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay. Was there anything else afterwards?
There sure was. Okay.
Did Venom show
We
up?
get a post credit scene.
Where's Venom?
We get a post
Did he show up?
we get a post credit scene. No. Listen. Listen. We get a new post credit scene.
Okay.
This post credit scene answers a little bit of some of the questions the fandom has had regarding like the Peter Parker spell, like the forget Peter Parker spell.
Have we had any
And
questions?
so
Have we had any of these questions? Like, have we asked on this
I
on
mean,
here?
it, like we specifically, I don't think have, but just in regards of like, how does that work actually? Like, has he been erased from like everyone's memory? Is he erased from all pictures and writings and social medias? Like, is that cleansed? Like, how does that work?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the way they answer it, and it's very, very perfect. So we have an end of year video presentation by Betty Brant with pictures of classmates, and a few do feature Peter Parker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is there, but he has something obstructing his face in every one of his pictures. Like a bird is flown across, or he's like facing away from the camera. So he is present, but something is like obscure and you can't actually see him. So he's like, for everyone, almost like a vague memory. That kid in school that if you were to see him again, be like, oh, I think maybe, I think like something is like an essence of you seems similar,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't peg you to anywhere. Like, I don't know where I know you, how I know you, what your name is, nothing, but you maybe feel familiar. Like, that's kind of the way that Peter is living the world right
Yeah.
now. So he hasn't been cleansed from, say, pictures. It's just things have been warped where no one would bother to question and be like, who's that guy?
Right.
You know?
Right. I think that makes sense. Yeah. Because I think.
Yeah. So for that reason, oh, go
Yeah, I
ahead.
was just gonna say that I feel like that would be a question, just because pre-curse, I'm sure if not curse, pre-spell, it's not curse. Yeah, he though he kind of kept to himself as Peter Parker. I'm sure people, even like teenagers, I just remember being in high school and a lot of people just randomly taking pictures and videos and things like that. You know, so I can. Is everything okay? Is everything
Yeah, I'm
okay?
good. I'm just like, I don't know if you see my face or not. Hold on. I'm just trying to make sure that this is working so that my phone doesn't die.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
that's weird. Continue.
honestly, that threw me off. What was I saying? What was I talking about?
I'm so sorry.
Uh,
You were talking about how, well, we were just talking about Peter Parker not existing in like
oh,
pictures and
right, right,
etc.
right,
And
right,
then you
right.
were, yeah.
So yeah, like just a tiny like explanation that we're kind of moving Peter into the quote unquote background as like a person you never really think about, and it's like, of course. Well, I can't even say of course, just because in high school everybody has their own cliques, and there are like people that you maybe have in like one class, but you never really see again afterwards. And I feel like they kind of put him in that, like on some, oh, totally forgot you were here, like that type of situation.
Very much. It's like basically like people actively avoid acknowledging his existence at this point,
Mm-hmm.
is kind of where it's at. So it's just it's cool because it gives you a better understanding of the rules of the spell, because you don't really know exactly the extent of how it works, and so it's cool that they did give us this answer here. I think this would have been a really great post-credit scene to kind of finish off with.
Yeah.
I think it would have been great. But maybe it would have taken away from how sad you felt about Peter at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Knowing that, like, oh, he's still there, kind of. I feel like maybe that was the reason. Like, they want us to just stay feeling sad for Peter in that
Yeah.
regard. And so it's hard to say, but I think this is one that I feel like it would have been great to get it, but at the same time, I think I can understand why they decided not to include it.
Well, just from what you're telling me, just with all of the scenes that they added, a lot of things that they kind of took out, they were more so scenes that you don't really feel bad for Peter Parker, because if it's the hate scene with the green slime, or even more hate scenes in the high school, and then back here, come to find out, it's like he's kind of being erased from memory. It's like they kind of wanted to end it on a sad note, but at the same time they didn't want to make it like too sad. So I understand why they took out a few of these clips, and adding them back in, I don't know how I would feel, if I would feel the same way as seeing the original all over again. Would I feel more sad? I don't know. But what about you? Like, how did you feel after watching this again in its entirety?
I think in its entirety, it was exactly what it kind of setting the expectations to be, which is just the more fun version.
Mm-hmm.
You just get a little of extra things scattered here and there. I think the part that I think would have just been awesome if we did keep in the original was all of the banter between the Spider-Man,
Mm-hmm.
just because I feel like that's the stuff we like when we think about these guys coming together. This is what we want to see. Like when we talk about future team, I was like, that's what I want to see, is like the chemistry between these characters, the interactions, like how do they like we talked about, like Spider-Man and Yelena Belova. Like I would love to see their conversations unfold, and that's exactly what we get from these extended scenes in that bonding segment. And I think I would have loved to see that in like the original cut and more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Apart from that, I think that the flow and the overall rhythm of the original was perfect. I think the way that this is received can come off as chunky. Specifically, the scenes with Betty Brand's interviews with the like classmates and
Mm-hmm.
teachers, etc. That, like, if it was in the original cut, I would have been like, this is kind of a waste of time. You could have cut this out. The movie's already 2.5 hours long. Why are you putting
Well,
this?
then let me ask you this, like, because I know you initially said, like, I guess they cut some to add some. Initially last week when you say you bought your tickets, it was the same exact runtime as the original. So was it the same
Okay.
with these new scenes?
No. So it was still 11 minutes longer. So what I mean by some things were, like, say, shaved off is, for example, the scene where Harry Holland makes a cameo and you get like a different view of like the slime
Mm-hmm.
scene. We don't get the original view from the Daily Bugle of that scene
Okay.
anymore because it's swapped out, but we see everything else. So it's not like we get anything removed. It's more so like if there's overlap, then they kind of blend it in some way.
Okay.
But so this is actually important. So I had texted like Chill over the weekend because I was buying my tickets, and I look at the runtime and like, okay, why is the runtime like 2 hours and 30 something minutes? Like, I think this is what the original was. It should be longer. So I look at what the original runtime was, and it was exactly the same. So I was like, okay, what is going on? I'm going to show up into the theaters and get the same exact movie. So I called the theaters. I went to like, I was just like, what did I say? I was like, operator, just so I can get a human person. And I asked them, I'm like, I have like a very weird question for you. I want to know if this is indeed like the extended version, because when I'm looking to buy the tickets, it tells me the original runtime. And she's like, let me find out. And I appreciate this woman so much because she's like, I'm going to look. She looked at like, I don't know what data encryption that they actually look at when they have like, on their back end stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, because she just comes back on the phone. She's like, it's a different data encryption or something like that on the file versus the original. I'm like, that's all I need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I hung up. So she was so awesome to help me out. So if you guys see that, just know it is the extended version. For some reason on like Fandango or whatever you buy, like your movie tickets, it just doesn't have the updated one. So it is 11 minutes longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I was curious because you seem pretty upset. You were like, hold on.
No, there wasn't anything in addition to that. So that would have been cool too.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been cool too. Another thing is, okay, so I had found out that there was a deleted scene of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man versus the Green Goblin, and I think that it was such a disservice to the fan that we didn't actually get this in a much more like intimate way because we don't really see any scenes of them two directly fighting.
Right.
I think once he appears, it's mainly him and Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And so I think it would have been cool because this is the match that started it all. Peter
Mm-hmm.
Parker and the Green Goblin. I just think it would have been so nostalgic to just get a very brief part of that battle. I don't know. Maybe it would have taken away from the battle he had with Tom Holland, and maybe that's why they didn't add it in. Maybe it would have overshadowed what that was, but I just felt like it would have been kind of cool.
Well, out of everybody, didn't Toby have the most villains or no? He had Doc Ock, he had Sandman, and he had Green Goblin. He had three. So at the Statue of Liberty, I can imagine. Wait, no, because Doctor Octavius, he was already fixed at the condo. So who is he seen really battling at the Statue of Liberty besides Sandman? Anybody else?
Um, I am trying. I mean, he does try at like Electro in that like scene where like all three of them are just trying to get through somehow.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I mean, I can't really think of. I feel like we see him in action of flying in the air. We see him with I'm just attaching a new a new cable to see if
All
I can
good.
get this thing charging.
All good.
Uh, but I feel like I can't really think of any like big scene of him fighting
Okay.
one of the things. I know, like the Andrew Garfield versus the Lizard kind of comes to mind because I feel like that was really funny because he's like, "Wait, your turn," you know?
Right. Right. Let me ask you real quick, because I've already shown the comic with that was called The Amazing Fantasy, but you shot over two more images. One with the Amazing Spider-Man with the Fantastic Four, and then there was like another one to where it looks kind of like a sad page of like the back of Peter Parker walking away. You
Yes,
know.
yes, yes. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up that second one you mentioned on my end just so I can kind of quote it directly. So I believe the one where you see the Fantastic Four, that should be the Amazing Spider-Man number one,
Mm-hmm.
came out in 1963. So a little less than a year actually from the first time we see Spider-Man, which is Amazing Fantasy number 15, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to just pull up the Amazing Fantasy. So the little kind of comic book like panel that you see is from the original appearance of Spider-Man, Amazing Fantasy number 15. I'm just rolling to it right now. And so this is the first time that we get delivered the iconic line that has been adopted in every single version of Spider-Man so far, which is um, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. And the reason I have this up, a couple things. So in the comics, the person to say this actually is Spider-Man himself. It's actually not Ben.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing is, so we've seen this adapted in both the Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfield. With great power, there comes great responsibility. And when May says it in this film, she says, with great power, there must also come great responsibility, which seems like a deviation from the original, but how she's the only one to actually say it. And it's like true form straight from the original comic, which for me just is very cool because the other two had a variation from it, whereas hers was like word for word from its first like writing in this issue. And for me, I just thought that was really cool because I think when we talked about it originally, I was like, oh, I love how hers is just a little different in the wording, but it's actually the original writing.
Well, we can just say, just like in the Multiverse of Madness, where we actually have human variants, we also have quoted variants as well. You know what I'm saying? So different versions of the same sayings, and then when they all talked about it on the roof, they knew exactly what
Perfect.
what it was all about. So, yeah.
Nexus event.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's so perfect. It's so perfect. But yeah, and this is literally the last panel you get from his story in this issue. And then from there, it's literally history, guys. And here we are 60 years later.
60 years later, still talking Spider-Man, and We're always going to talk about Spider-Man. I feel like, again, he's just going to be one of those characters to where no matter what, no matter how many versions, he's just a staple to where whether it's Sony or Marvel Studios, they're just going to keep him in some way, shape, or form.
I mean, with the now expansion of the multiverse and the fact that Spider-Man is the one that kicked it off initially, really for the MCU in this way, we are gonna get so many, and I'm so excited. Spider-Verse, Spider-Geddon are like one of my favorite like events in the MCU. It's so much fun just to see all of these different beings of Spider-Man and how they go up against this vampiric type family. It's just insanity, and I really hope they adapt it in some way. I actually have a question for you, and I thought of it when we were talking a little bit earlier about these three Spider-Men and like the possibility of them having a cell phone that could extend to different
Mm-hmm.
multiverses. We know that Secret Wars is going to be the last film, I think, of this saga,
Mm-hmm.
and we know Secret Wars is in the comics at least two universes battling out to be the last remaining universe. All the other ones have basically been axed out. They have been I forget the term that they use in Multiverse of Madness. Do you know which one I'm talking
Like
about?
Incursion?
Incursion. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
There have been incursions. There have been destroyed, etc. There's two left, and that's what the Secret Wars basically tackles. And we see this battle ensue with just heroes and villains from both sides. That is two. We've gotten three Spider-Man right now on the screen that we have known and loved for various years, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, if Secret Wars is the end game, does this mean the idea that some of these Spider-Man's universes are actually going to get cut from
Existence.
the world, from existence? I don't like that thought. And it came to me and I was like, I don't like it. But the thing is, that's literally what's going to happen. Like, thoughts, feelings, trivia. How do you feel?
I mean, it has to happen because no matter what, it's all gonna come down to one sacred
This event.
timeline. You know, like whether he who remains acknowledges it to be Secret Wars. I still feel like that's still my whole thing with it coming full circle and then becoming one timeline. But either way, if it's right now we're in the multiversal saga, right? And the Secret Wars is more so about how we're losing universes left and right until there's one ultimate universe. It's just really just bringing us back to one timeline. So will it be the timeline of 616? Will we keep Tom Holland because he signed on for 3 more movies? It didn't say 4. It didn't say anything about any new Avengers films. So who knows in terms of what Spider-Man are here to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. It was such a scary, nasty idea that I got. Like, what's it called? Like a intrusive thought. I'm like, no, why would you think that? Like thinking of like them coming down to just one of them,
Well,
Because if that is where we
tell me,
go
is
ahead.
it really that bad? Just simply for the fact that before this movie came out, I feel like the consensus already wrote off Tobey Maguire. Even before the idea of this movie, even like because even when they announced this, then everybody was like, "Oh, Toby, are you in it? Toby, are you in it?" No, 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 no. He tried to deny it, but before this was even a thing, nobody, or as me, I'll just speak on myself. I wasn't really thinking of Toby, and as far as what and how Sony handled Andrew Garfield, I wasn't really thinking of Andrew either, honestly. So low key, like I hate to say this phrase, but they were dead. They died. You know what I'm saying? That story died. So the only Spider-Man that was relevant was Tom Holland. So was this movie great that we got to bring them back? Yes, but it's going to bring it back to the point to where there can only be one. I'm sorry.
Their story ended until No Way Home hit theaters. Their story ended until No Way Home hit theaters because now
Mm-hmm.
that No Way Home is in existence, and
Mm-hmm.
we acknowledge the fact that Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and Tom Holland are all Spider-Man and they all live in this like multiversal world and
Mm-hmm.
that they're all intertwined. Now their stories matter again and they're back at the forefront. We have Tobey Maguire, who we can tell, like Peter too, that he has like moved on, like from where we saw him last. He's grown. He has like a semi-stable relationship with Mary Jane. And he has like this piece of who he is and his role as Spider-Man that I think gives us so much hope for Andrew and for Tom Holland's variants of, because they're not in the best place right now. And the only stories we've seen of Peter is like he's constantly struggling to balance and maintain all of it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the Peter, like the life of Peter, and also just, being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. So, for example, to see Tobey Maguire in this very like just serene and peaceful state, like he's definitely the one that keeps everyone centered,
Mm-hmm.
just gives us hope for the other two who are still on their journey. And it does mean something now, which is why the stakes have changed. It's not just, oh, we can go back and have it. It's like, no, like this is real. This is present. This is like now relevant. Where before, you're totally right. These stories weren't meshed together. Like their stories ended. It wasn't. It was very irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case anymore. They are. They're here. We have to like acknowledge it. You know.
Okay. Well, just for conversation's sake, here's my prediction on how it's gonna go. Tobey Maguire, he's out of here. I'm sorry. He's gone. Eventually, it'll happen, and then it's gonna come down to 616 versus Andrew Garfield, and who comes out of that, we don't know. But I'm sorry, Toby. Toby's gone. We don't want, or do we want an old man Spider-Man story just like a Logan or something like that?
Not with Toby. The thing is, like, okay, so I know when this film came out, like, aside from the Secret Wars conversation, like, I know when this film came out and everyone was like, oh, like, we want to see more, we want to see Toby, we want to see Andrew. Like, unless Toby is just making a guest appearance in their films, like Andrew or Tom's, I don't want Toby to have his, like, Spider-Man number 4, because
Right.
that would mean something in his life that we can kind of assume has been stabilized, which is wonderful for him because he struggled for so long. That means something from that has to be dismantled in order for there to be a story, and I don't want that. Like, I like the beautiful bow that is, the idea that he's living a happy life with Mary Jane, a balance with his life in Spider-Man. I love that. I don't want that to be revisited, so I totally agree. Andrew Garfield, I want an Andrew Garfield movie. I do, because his Spider-Man is the one that was left the most. I want to see more of Andrew Garfield's story. We deserve it. And I
You
don't
just
know.
want him to
I'm just
be
sad.
amazing. You want him to get out of this rut
He is
and coming
amazing.
out to be the amazing Spider-Man.
I want him to know he's amazing.
Hmm. He knows.
He knows. He
He
knows.
knows.
It's no, yeah. So I think that's all I got in regards to the extended versions. Um, yeah, I think that's everything I have. Do you have any other comments, complaints, concerns?
Nah, you answered all of my questions. So
Wonderful.
I'm just updating now the title. Now we're on to the D23 recap, because if anything, it was a big weekend. You know what I'm saying? It was a lot.
It was a great weekend.
It was a lot that had come out in those couple days. You know what I'm saying? I'm just super excited just to just go ahead and dive into this. So, um, though, say you started and you kind of led Spider-Man, I do want to kind of lead lead off here
Let's do
with
it.
D23. Okay, just because there were so many announcements, and I was too impatient to watch D23. Like, I actually started the live stream on Saturday, and it was just like a panel of people talking about other things that I wasn't interested in. You know, the rest of Disney. I'm right now invested into the Marvel Studios little portion of it. You know, so I sat around and waited for a bit for pretty much all of Instagram to post everything, anything and everything Marvel related in D23, and I want to start by talking about something that I was unfamiliar with. Grace, I'm going to ask you just in terms of the story of Werewolf by Night. Had that been something that you had heard about before?
Not at all. And I am telling you, it got me so excited because it is so like noir. I don't even know how to reclaim this like version. It's very old timely Hollywood
Right.
like cinema, and obviously it's done in like the new age now, but I love it. I'm excited about it because it's like a whodunit, who's the werewolf, which I think is
Right.
so funny, having just finished the conversation of like Spider-Man, because when Andrew Garfield was like talking about how I'm not Spider-Man, he's like, I feel like I'm playing like I'm like the werewolf, like where I'm telling you I'm not the werewolf, I'm not the werewolf, and now we
Mm-hmm.
have this. So no, I did not know of it previously. I am very excited by what I saw. It was a wonderful trailer. And I'm looking forward to it. So I'm excited because it's something we're obviously going to break down here once it comes around.
It's a mystery for sure. Cause you have the story. I don't really know the story, but I'm just gonna call this place Transylvania. Okay, this isn't definite. This is just me comparing to what we know of Transylvania, right? And we get like the werewolf and how we get this old school Hollywood noir or whatnot. But then like there are scenes of, I think this werewolf is fighting soldiers, and there were no emblems shown, of course, on these soldiers just for the mystery of it. But now, with this is a brand new story, not really connected with anything that we know of, but I wonder if those soldiers are going to be the connecting factor, whether if it's like an organization like an old school Shield or another version of Hydra or something like that. It just leads me to wonder, is this going to be a separate story not attached to anything, or if they're going to attach it to the rest of the universe?
It's so weird to me, and I think it's like TBD because I don't know how this would connect to anything else we're seeing or that's in development or the story this is leading into. So it's like I don't know. If it's just a standalone, I feel like that'd be kind of cool if this is just a sector of the Marvel universe that isn't like as corely defined by the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, etc. Kind of like Sandman.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's of the DC universe, and there's connections that can be made, like Constantine, like we saw, but it's not like the stories are centered around Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman, where it feels DC. Maybe it's going to be something like that.
But one thing that I read today, even though this actually solidifies the statement that you just made, I just read that they cut a Blade scene out of it, just due to scheduling in terms of filming. He may have been filming something else, so I'm just like, if Blade was gonna be in here, this is what I've been waiting for.
Dude,
This is everything I wanted.
that is so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I would love that because this is definitely based in a different time period.
Yeah.
It has to be,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like being that it's from a different time period, it's like we can get a story that is connected somehow to Blade, but it doesn't necessarily need to have weight in any other sector. So you can just kind of enjoy the story for what it is because it's so different and it's so October-esque,
Yeah.
which I love. It's like, I mean, when it's after July 4th, it's spooky season in my home. So I'm excited for this. I feel like it's on brand with everything that I love.
This comes out this year, yeah?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, that's one W. You know what I'm saying? One W from D23. Oh, I'm gonna bring up a picture here. I didn't send it to you, but it's like one of those cast pictures of the cast members of these panels, and this is of Loki season 2. Now we get Loki, Sylvie, and Morbius, but we do get a familiar face. We were just recently talking about him not too long ago from the other multiversal movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once. This guy's name is Jonathan K. Kwan. He was like in the original like Goonies and one of the Indiana Jones, but they're bringing him into Loki, and I feel like being that he did an amazing job in Everywhere All at Once. I feel like them is just this. It's almost like adding the secret sauce, like the multiversal sauce of bringing him into this universe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. And I know that he's going to be playing like a TVA officer or something like that. So I think it's a good blend. You know,
Yeah.
I think he makes sense for this project, and I think everyone's really excited about it because he did so well in that other movie. So
Well, I
absolutely.
feel like it's just him as a familiar face, like, because I think, yeah, we mentioned it before. He took a hiatus, like, I don't know, maybe 20 years just to come back to acting. He was, like, more so behind the camera, but now he's back. So I'm glad that now he is back, and now they're bringing him into Loki season 2.
Absolutely. And I know that I don't think it's available for like everyone to see because I think when you watch, I don't know, did you see like the Loki in like a creepy empty TVA scene? Did you see that?
No, I did not.
There was like a snippet that was, I think, just, I don't know, like I didn't see it, but I read articles about it or like what it had, and it was basically just like a snippet of like Loki in this very empty looking like creepy TVA, like, and it's just zooming in on him,
Mm-hmm.
which is just like the not even a teaser, I think just a glimpse, a smidge of season 2, you know.
Okay. Well, right now the TVA is in disarray now because of the multiverse of madness, and then like Loki, he's in an unknown TVA. He's in another branch to where he doesn't even know anybody. Like he thought he knew Morbius, but he he doesn't. Well, he knows of them, but they don't know him. So I can imagine if it's like a scene of him just standing there, he's just standing there lost because this is a brand new universe. He doesn't really belong, and who knows? Who knows what he's up to in this season?
I'm excited to see like what variants of Kang we're gonna see in the series. You know, like I wonder if it's gonna be like the way we saw so many different Lokis.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're gonna see and explore different variants of Kang. You know, like I mean, this is a series I think all of us have been looking forward to since Loki ended, just because it was so good. So I'm very happy to hear that it's in production now.
So I, like you saw earlier today, I started reading the Kang comic. Sorry, going off topic here, off of D23, but I'm starting to read it, and even on the cover of this Kang comic, it mentions him to be a variant of, I think they say Alexander the Great. Do you know that to be true?
In the comics?
Yeah, in the comics,
Or what do you mean?
Alexander the Great
I
is a
mean, I
variant.
haven't heard this directly. I haven't heard that
Okay,
directly, but if that's true, that's kind of
we're
cool.
gonna.
Because didn't we see Alexander the Great in Moon
I'm
Knight?
connecting dots here. Okay.
Oh, here, there you go. You're
I'm
2 steps
connecting
ahead.
dots just because if that is, I have to finish it because so far I'm only a few pages in, and actually it's pretty awesome from jump. But just in terms of if that's the case, and then they bring that here into the MCU, now we're talking as if Alexander the Great was a Kang variant, he was also an avatar for an Egyptian god. So at the end of the day, that variant was almighty, and it's just I just want to see more of that if that is the actual case.
Dude, I love that so much.
Yeah.
I mean, being that we did get to see Alexander the Great in Moon Knight, being that we know Kang is going to be very present in this saga, we haven't seen much of him since Loki.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that'd be so cool if they kind of wind back to that in a way, because also it connects Moon Knight to the rest of the universe, which we don't really have like full ties for. You
Right.
know what I
It's
mean?
so
Like not,
far a standalone.
yeah. Mm,
Is that what you would call it, a
exactly.
standalone? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's meant to be more of a standalone for a while. Like they made mention that we're not going to see Moon Knight connect directly or directly with any of our heroes for quite some time, which is fine because he has a lot of development to do on his own anyway.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of story to be done just solo as is. But it would be a cool way to still connect his world to the MCU so that it's not weird when those worlds do come together, you
Definitely.
know?
Definitely. Okay. Moving on, I'm gonna actually throw up another picture of a cast real quick. Where is it? Okay, so we discussed it briefly on our Instagram yesterday. I brought up a character that we talked about. I would have thought that would have been continuation of the Hulk story, but now they're putting him into a Captain America story.
I love this for so many reasons. So, first of all, the fact that the Incredible Hulk, 2008, technically the first film to start off the MCU, so forgotten by many, I included, is so present in this like phase. I think that's so cool because I feel like that calls to like how far out things can be, but still have some delivery. Because I think the last time we saw him in Hulk, his brain was like in like his head was like
It was
swelling
like
up or something.
expanding. Yeah, yeah. Like I mentioned
Yeah,
that like we didn't get to see him transform, but it was apparent before the Battle of Harlem between Abomination and the Incredible Hulk, something was off with him, and like his forehead was moving as if it looked like it was about to explode, and then they cut, and then from there I'm just like, what happened to that guy? I guess we're just gonna leave that be. And as much I don't want to say all right, as much crap as I give about like Adam Warlock and them taking 5 years to talk about his story,
it's what they do.
they're
It's
doing
what they
that,
do.
and they brought this what 14 years later, 2022. Yeah, like, and that comes out when 2023, 2024. Do you remember
Yep.
which one?
It's I believe this is 2023.
Okay. So 15 years later, he's coming back on screen to play the same character. So I should just chill out on just being salty and wanting the answers immediately. You know, I don't know if it's my generation just being in the microwave era of wanting everything now, but F it, I still want it. I want everything answered right now.
I want
I
it
still
now.
want it. You know?
I want my money and I want it now. Do you know the commercial I'm talking
Oh,
about?
sure.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, no, I think this is, I like when they, because it's kind of like, it gives hope for any little loose string you can think of in the MCU that you think they forgot. And maybe they did and realized, oh crap, we got to fill this out. So then they weave it together. But in the end, just is this so cool, like, construction of this like wonderful world. You know what I mean? It's just it's what they do best. It's like that weaving that they do so well. It's the Easter eggs. It's those fans.
Oh, hello. Oh no, did we lose her? Oh, hold on. Okay, we're back.
Oh, you froze.
You
Okay, you
froze.
froze on my end.
I was like, did we
Literally,
lose her?
it froze on you just staring at me, so I didn't even notice anything until I was like, "Hello, are you responding?"
Okay, but we're back. Um,
Okay,
Go ahead.
so what I was just saying was that I think it's the thing that Marvel does really well. It's the thing it's known for, and I think it's cool because it's like those fans who watched the Incredible Hulk in 2008 who were like, "When the hell are they going to deliver on this little Easter egg?" Or just even you may have forgotten about it and you're only just remembering it now. It's rewarding those fans who are still here 15, 16 years later enjoying the films for you
Mm-hmm.
to sit in theater and be like, oh my god, it's that, or just watching the announcement and be like, oh, and like connect it. Like those are the things that make the fandom amazing, you know, and
Yeah,
that's what I love. So
definitely.
I'm a big fan of what they're doing with this.
Like I can imagine the people that were in D23, they're the same people that we see in theaters on week one of a Marvel movie releasing, and then like once they announced that he was like coming and he gets on stage, I can just imagine like the whole like area like erupt and like, oh, it's that guy from Incredible Hulk, you know. So even if they didn't give that to us in D23, and then that happened to be, let's say, another Matt Murdock moment here in the new Captain America, that would still have just been a moment like, yes, they finally brought it back, and now we're getting the answers. An unexpected turn, but like in a good way, you know?
Absolutely. And I think on that note too, it's like I think it gives hope so that if there's anything like the floating statues sticking out of like the freaking ocean, um, they will address it eventually. And
Mm-hmm.
when they do, it'll
Eventually.
happen. You know, so
Yeah.
it's cool. But alongside Captain America New World Order, we find out that Isaiah Bradley, did I say
Mm-hmm.
it?
Mm-hmm.
Is going to return. Joaquin Torres will return. We're gonna get Shira Haas playing Sabra, and she's an Israeli superhero. I'm not too familiar with the actress, but this is also part of the announcements.
Mm-hmm.
And a big theme is they're going to be kind of fighting a lot of misinformation. I think kind of lingering with the media. I think there's so much like TBD when it comes to like where the hell is Cap? What happened in game? What is this, and that? Like I think they kind of have to deal with a lot of the politics, and that's going to be a big theme I think in this film.
Well, let me ask you, how would that vary from the show? Like, why is Steve Rogers relevant in this movie coming out?
I don't know if specifically I would say Steve Rogers, but just an example of the fact that the public has questions, and I think it's like there's a lot of misinformation on what actually has happened, and I think that's something that Sam and the others have like repercussion on, you know?
Yeah. Okay. And I like that they actually announced I think you said his name is Joaquin, so he is officially Falcon here in this new movie. It wasn't announced in the
That's all.
show, but we have been talking about it on stream that he is the new Falcon and he has a Falcon suit, so it'll be cool to see two winged fighters out there.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped.
Um,
Yeah.
I was going to bring up a random picture that I got, and it wasn't necessarily a movie announcement. It's actually an announcement of like one of the new attractions at Disney, to where it's like
Oh, okay.
it's a picture of, they call him, it's a variant of Thanos and they call him King Thanos,
Oh my
and
God.
I'm just going to enlarge this. He looks effing awesome. I'm sorry I didn't send it to you. This is like last minute, but like I saw it and I just wanted to talk about it for a second. It's the Thanos that we know of. He has like a goatee going, and he just looks badass. It's like on some. Initially, I wanted to go to the Marvel area at California Adventure just because, but now I think this is an attraction to where you're quote unquote working with the superheroes to defeat King Thanos. So I think if anything, that's something that people of all ages could be excited for. Me being 36 as I am, I'm like, oh, I want to fight King Thanos. Why not?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you? That sounds
Right.
awesome.
Yeah.
And you said this is in California Adventure?
Yeah.
That
And
is so
the what's it called? Is it called the Avengers Campus?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's gonna be added soon. I just wanted to throw that up there. I thought that was pretty
See,
cool.
I'm so excited with that announcement because we're gonna go to California Adventure next week. It's part of like my daughter's birthday, like extravaganza.
Yeah.
So I get to check it out. On the note of just like cool superhero things outside of D23, I was at the store the other day and I see the Gardens of the Galaxy holiday special Lego Advent calendar set.
Okay.
And I already threw it in my cart. Then I looked and I'm like, it's $60. I'm gonna wait.
Oh man.
But I was so excited. So like we didn't get an advent calendar last year for some strange reason, but we did like the Marvel one a couple years ago, and it was so cool because it was basically these little mini. I don't even know if I would call them like mini Funkos, but they're like miniature Funko looking things, and they're all different superheroes. Like my daughter, like only until recently has she lost them, but she like kept them so well. She had Cap, Hulk, Gamora, I mean, you name it. It was ridiculous. And so I was like, I want the Guardians of the Galaxy one. Also because I feel like we get so many announcements based on the toys that get released. That's how it was like, it was one of the things that added to the fire that the other Spider-Man were going to come into the film, because I forget in one country they released some toys with the label of like No Way Home, and it was like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, you know? So we learned so much from like the toys and things of like films. And so I'm like, if I get the advent calendar, they think I'm going to wait till the end of like Christmas to open it, which means I'm going to learn things after the film. I'm going to open all of them at once just so I know what's going to happen.
I think that was the only way we knew that we were getting Smart Hulk in Endgame. Like, he was a toy. Like, we found out through the toys at first. And then, I don't want to say that spoiled it for me, but it low-key did. It's like, oh, wait. I already knew.
I'm on the fence.
We already knew.
I'm going to, like, I I'm wondering if, because the holiday special is obviously coming out in December, this is an advent calendar, which is like a day you open each one and you get like some little Lego toy. I wonder if, like, as it gets closer to the film, it gives you more things for you to get an idea of what's going to happen. And it's not till like after the film release, or I should say like episode release, because it's just, or short, right?
Yeah.
It gives you something that's a big Easter egg towards the end where it wouldn't ruin the project, but like you would find out in like a good timeline. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then I'm debating experiencing it as it was meant to be, or do I just open all of it and see if I somehow crack the code to what's happening in Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Edition, Holiday Special.
If you crack the code and then you find out there's a character missing, then what?
I must get it.
Then
I know what
okay,
I'm
just
doing this
saying.
evening.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I think honestly, there's really only one more announcement that we didn't get from LA Comic Con, and that is of this is the last picture that I'm going to post, but it's of the Thunderbolts. You know what I'm saying? We can't see it. Oh, now we can see everybody, but I feel like for me, this was the biggest announcement of D23. Is like, yeah, we got the wolf and we got like Mr. Blue and everything, but there was speculation. Like Grace and I, we've had these talks in terms of what's going to happen with these characters who are supposedly part of the Thunderbolts, and I'm going to throw up that huge little picture that they posted in their background, and it just looks so cool. You know, it almost looks like a painting of you got Yelena, you have the Winter Soldier, you have U.S. Agent, you have is he a Crimson something like?
We have Ghost, Taskmaster, and the Red Guardian.
The
Those
Red
are
Guardian.
the lineup.
The Red
Yeah.
Guardian. And just assuming from the picture, do you think that being that Val is to the far left, that Ross he's not in this project?
I can assume that to be true, and also Val has been called to be essentially like the Fury of the Thunderbolts, and Thunderbolts are basically like the Suicide Squad. It's basically Marvel's Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
And just looking at the lineup, I can so see it kind of looking like that, and I am just so excited for characters like Bucky to interact with Yelena Belova, Red Guardian, and even Ghost, who's kind of been like a very isolated introvert with very little social skills because she's had a very difficult, challenging life. I'm excited for her to make friends, to meet Gray. Last time I saw her was in Ant-Man and the Wasp, where we saw like Scott was actually collecting.
USA Agent, maybe. Actually, no. But yeah, everybody but those two, Ghost and Red Guardian, they were either mind controlled or U.S. Agent. He just happens to fall under the mentally damaged due to circumstances. So so when it comes down to it, I think if anything, Ghost, she has her trauma just of the quantum realm that we didn't get to too much from in Ant-Man. Is like, yeah, we saw some clash between her and I'll call him Goliath, aka Lawrence Fishburne or whatnot, but we didn't get much of a story from her. It was just more so we had to save her, and then we find I forgot the woman. We find Michelle Pfeiffer in the quantum realm, you know. So from there, I like that they're going to expand on her story. Taskmaster, I'm not too excited about. If they were in the here we go again. If they were in the initial Thunderbolts, cool. But Taskmaster here again was pretty much my only gripe with Black Widow, and though they are badass in terms of the abilities that they are able to do, the person being, was she the daughter of somebody initially that Romanoff ended
She's
up
the
executed.
daughter of Dreykov, which is like the dictator of the Black Widows, and so we got a backstory of hers that I think just didn't deliver very much, and it seemed very forced. I feel like that was the only element that we definitely agreed that was not like up to par with everything else in the film.
Yeah.
So Taskmaster, like, I'm curious, is it going to be the same Taskmaster we saw with the same actress and everything?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be a new variation of Taskmaster since it wasn't well received by a lot of people? Is this Taskmaster going to kind of serve almost like the Snake Eyes of the group, where they don't talk and they're just kind of in the corner and they just fight the fight and that's kind of it?
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple questions with that, but apart from that, like, honestly, this is such a solid team. I am just so happy. I'm like, I can't wait to hear the banter with these people because I'm just excited to see how like the team has like a chemistry and how they mesh and how they contrast from the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so pumped to be able to make those comparisons when this film gets released.
What if by chance, because I'm sure we're gonna get the story of how they become a team and Val kind of assembling everything, and then like conflict comes and someone, I wouldn't know who says it, maybe even Red Guardian says it. What if he's just like, well, we have a Hulk, and then boom, enter Red Hulk just on some just like on some
Yes!
random.
Oh my god, yes! I would love that. See, those are the things I would love to see in this film, is like those small little parallels that like call to the original Avengers film,
Mm-hmm.
but in the way that makes sense for these characters, their chemistry, their team, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that would be so cool. Oh yeah, I'm such a fan of this. And I feel like I can't wait for the Red Guardian and Bucky to have interactions, because the Red Guardian definitely sees himself like Steve Rogers, like on par with him. Like he's like, oh yeah, I beat up Steve Rogers or whatever the case may be, which is totally false because the timelines don't even add up. So I feel like Bucky would be someone to maybe like be like, calm down, you know, because he actually knows Steve.
He's like, hold
so
on,
I'm just
hold on there, man.
yeah,
You
humble
don't
him
know.
real quick,
Right.
real quick.
Right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, I think of announcements, that's pretty much everything. I'm kind of running short on time. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about real quick?
I have so much, but that's okay.
We can continue low key.
We can continue. We
Yeah.
can continue. We can wrap this up here, and I just have some things that I definitely don't want to rush on because it's Quantumania based, Black Panther based, Secret Invasion, and I want to make sure we give each of these topics like a good amount of time. So
Right.
I think this is good. We can continue this on Friday and maybe add it on to that as well.
I'm with it. I'm just looking at the time. I was like, wait, I haven't eaten yet. I'm sorry. I'm actually. It's almost time for dinner. I gotta cook something. So, I think that's everything that I got on my end. I know ooh, what is going on? Wrong one. I know there was much more. It's just we're just gonna have to get to it later. And either way, this weekend was just jam packed with so many goodies from Marvel. It just got me excited.
You can't do it all in one. You can't do it all in one episode.
Can't do it
it's
all.
Just a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Because it's like I did have a few pictures of like just some of the updated posters, but I'll bring that up a little later. But yeah, this was fun. I'm glad. Grace, first off, I apologize. I didn't see No Way Home again. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's all right. It is what it is.
But I appreciate you going that extra mile and seeing those extra scenes and chatting about it, because like I said, I was curious to see what they added to the original. So everything sounded good. I would watch it again just to see those scenes. So yeah, that was a win too. So Marvel won all the way around for me.
It was a great weekend. Great weekend for Marvel. And a lot of great announcements Disney-wise. Disenchanted, The Little Mermaid. It's been insanity. So many cool things everywhere. The new season of The Mandalorian. God.
Oh, yeah. I totally forgot about that. Yep, I saw that.
Dude.
Mm-hmm.
Man, my partner's been like watching it on repeat in the living room, and every time he's just like, ah!
Watching what, the trailer?
Yeah, just the trailer. Just the trailer.
No.
I mean, it's good. So, yeah. So I'm excited. Lots to come. We'll break down more next time we see you guys on Friday.
Yep.
But that's all I got. What about you?
That's all I got.
Cool. In that case, this was Chill and Grace with the Comic Cinematic Universe. We will see you Friday.
Look at that. She did it for me again. Listen, we missed it the first time and she killed it again. So thank you, Grace, for closing this out. And we will catch y'all on Friday. Y'all have a good rest of your week.
Farewell.
Farewell.